Can you hear me now? Yeah, okay, so it looks like the sound device. Yeah, that's another problem with this new mixer. Okay, so apparently nobody could hear me. Now I'm seeing the levels on Streamlabs. I am so sorry. Alright, yeah, well, you didn't miss a whole lot unless you really give a crap about um Trump and Elon. Okay, cool. Yeah, so this has been just so you know, normally I do a sound check before the show, preparation. Um, so during the week, during the day, I have a contract with a particular company to work certain days of the week. Wednesdays, I'm usually not scheduled for anything, and long story short, that's part of why I pick Wednesdays to do the show because I can use the whole day to prepare and make sure I get it all right. So between the holidays and Jory's not here for tonight, and I got called in, there was a big disaster. So I do IT work, as you probably imagine, but yeah. So I was in a place that I wasn't expecting, and instead of actually being here doing the sound check in the 15 minutes I usually do that before I get started, I was looking for a power brick because I left the office and yeah, part of the problem was I had to use my personal device because my work machine got hosed, along with quite a few other machines. And so so I get home, I'm getting ready to set this up, and I look down and I'm like, well, I know I have another laptop charger for this somewhere. But yeah, I got a new mixer. So I don't know if you watched my other uh, videos, but I know the audio was weak. If the monitor is any indicator now, I would say that it's probably been fixed. But yeah, so yeah, it's definitely a different day. So if all goes well, Jory and I are planning on doing our typical live show on Saturday, and maybe I'll spare you the Elon Musk stuff because I'm kind of getting tired of it. Let me see if there's anything else worth talking. Well, I suppose I could go over it. Let's see here. Trump got reinstated. He's not coming back to it. Um, People are hating Musk now and hating on Tesla just because of what's going on at Twitter. So, like, Tesla's like the one good thing going for Elon Musk, but because Twitter's going the way it's going, people are not liking him. So, yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing. Um, and I'm not going to go through these links. You know what? Let's see here. No, that's not funny. Okay, but yeah, yeah. So that's basically, that's what's going on with that. People are leaving, and you know what? I don't know. Like, I kind of want to start talking about other things. So yeah, so the old mixer that sucked, and I mean, I didn't expect it to be nice to begin with, but like it only had one mic input, and of course when I bought it I wasn't thinking that I was ever going to have two people on the show, right? So what happened is I had to expand, but I'm glad. So like it's got a voice changer.
And if I really want to, I can talk like a squirrel.
But yeah, that's one of the fun toys. So let's see here. Yeah, I wish I was a little bit more prepared. Today was hectic. But let's see. So we're gonna be talking. Maybe we could talk about it now. But like what we're going to be talking about on Saturday is about jobs that, um, so people tend to pay the physically risky jobs more than the ones that are just emotionally damaging. Like, you ever notice how they pay customer service people like the bare minimum? And those are the ones that make you want to kill yourself. And yet, the people that climb towers, last I knew, they do it once or twice a year and get paid 30 grand every time they climb. Why do we value that much more? And yeah, that's going to be interesting. It's just like society, like as a whole. Um, I think it's because of this country's industrial history and just the way things have been with, capitalism and greed and just the yeah, one of us. But yeah, the corporate culture, like we value like people working hard and making the company big profits and things like that. And and what got nailed into people's heads since the past 110 years was this idea that the customer is always right. And so that's pretty much opened the doors for a lot of people who work in restaurants, who work call centers, who work in retail stores, and pretty much anything that gets deemed as like menial and like not as important, and they turn into abuse sponges. So I've spent a lot of years working and doing tech support jobs, and I can tell you right now, that scarred me for life for answering the phone. I'm getting better about answering the phone now, but I can tell you, I hate answering that phone. Because you work any sort of customer service job, you work any sort of technical support, especially, you learn to expect the person on the other end, after you greet them, to be angry about something. And it makes sense because, especially in technical support, chances are they're calling because what they're dealing with is something that's broken. And web hosting, I'm so glad I got out of that industry. People are so awful with web hosting. So what gets me is like, it's hilarious because the less money somebody spends on their hosting, the more noise they make. So, and this is something I noticed that's actually true. Like in like if you do freelancing for like websites, so there is a huge difference between a $500 website client and a $5,000 website client. And so one of those key differences is the simple fact that the people who are only willing to spend $500, they're so tight on their money, and it could be legit, but it's a large amount of money to them, and so they're more picky, they're more anal, they're watching the developer under a microscope, every little move they make to make sure that, God forbid, we don't spend 5 minutes wrong. And you know, and of course I'm talking in the U.S. economy, because if we're looking at another country, $500 could be the way we would perceive $5,000. So, but I've been on both ends. I've built $500 websites and I've built $2,000 websites, and then I've decided that I'm not doing websites anymore because it's an insane cycle. And so, yeah, so the people who like doing that work can go back to it because I'm not your competitor. So, but yeah, so like with customers, so in the case of like web hosting, so like if when I was working for a company, I'll name it Arvix, and so back in, well, I was working there from 2013 to almost 2015, something like that. And well, at any rate, and of course the prices changed too. Like they got acquired. I'm glad I got out after they got acquired because it was already turning to hell in a handbasket. But like back then, like the thing was like $4 a month web hosting, and so the people who were spending $4 a month were a completely different kind of character than the people who were spending $400 a month on a dedicated web server. Um, and that difference is the person who was spending $400 a month not only knew what they had, they didn't they didn't waste our time. Like if they called in and said something was broke, something was broke. And versus somebody who's calling in And this is one of my favorite things to laugh about. So like you get somebody that's on like the cheap web hosting plan, right? And so they'll sit there and they'll have a problem with their little web store, right? Oh, I'm losing thousands of dollars. Really? So we'd log in, we'd be trying to troubleshoot whatever problem it was, but we see your dashboard. We see the sales that you're not making. You're supposedly losing thousands. We're 3 weeks into the month and you've sold one single $10 shirt. Like, where, if you're making thousands, it's not here. And I don't know why people are like that, but I think it's that Karen mentality. I think it's um, the same mentality why people go into restaurants and refuse to tip their servers, or the people who go into a store like Walmart or, well, any kind of store, and they argue with the cashier because, oh, God forbid, my coupon's not expired. Or they'll take advantage. Like some places, like I know Hardee's has a reputation for this, for occasionally at least accepting expired coupons. Now I don't know if they changed that policy, but I do know that it used to be a thing, at least at the one here. And so, but yeah, a lot of people will bring in coupons in places, and then they'll berate the cashier. And for some reason, these nasty managers, they get this idea to take the customer's side, and they end up letting that poor cashier have an anxiety attack because they think it's okay, because remember, the customer is always right. So they'll remember that part of the phrase. The original phrase was the customer is always right in manners of taste. And what that translates to a little more closely in the way in our modern vernacular is the customer's right about what they like, what they want. If like if you buy a shirt, you're right about that you wanted it to fit right, whether or not you grab the right shirt, or whether or not you gauged the size shirt that you should be wearing. That's a you problem. That's not a store problem. There's people that live in this fantasy that they weigh less than they do, and they'll buy a shirt that they want to fit into, and then they'll raise all sorts of hell because, oh, it doesn't fit. And I don't get that, but this is where I just say the mental health, there's a crisis in this country. People aren't getting the help. They got a lot of stigma around it. Like there's just a lot of people who feel like they should be ashamed of being diagnosed with depression or anxiety or schizophrenia or whatever it is that they have. And this is why there's a lot of people who end up committing suicide, because they'd rather go that route than try and go get help, because what are my friends going to think? What is my family going to think? What is my boss going to think? And all these people, because for some reason we've got it drilled into people's heads that being a people pleaser is the way it should be. Yeah, you should make people like you, right? Yeah, so that is the original phrase. So, yeah, you know what? Let me pull this up and I'll show it to you. Customer is always right. Full quote. There we go. Oh, a nice, beautiful picture, and I think we'll find out who said it. Well, that looks like shit. No, that's not it. Hold on. So people come out and post pictures of like bullcrap in matters of taste. I can't remember who it was. I think it was like one of the like Woolsey or something like that. Woolworths rather. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna find it because I want to know. I forgot. H. Gordon Selfridge. Introduced in the 1930s. So, yeah, so the saying, the customer is always right, was conceived and popularized in a time when businesses engaged with customers in a high transactional manner. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but that's the whole thing. It's got history to it, but yeah, so but yeah, it's fed this whole this culture behind Karens, right? And it's funny because most people who are actually named Karens aren't really Karens. And then now there's some people like little Karens trying to say that Karen's a racial slur of some sort. It's like, since when is Karen a race? And to be clear, I mean, I guess the definition of a Karen would typically be a white woman because that's usually who has this sense of entitlement, but anybody could be a Karen. Um, now what we call like a male Karen, I've heard all sorts of names for that. I've heard them call like, oh, it's a Kevin or it's a Matthew. It's definitely a Matthew, right? Like I mean, but either way, it's like there's but there's that personality type. You hear somebody say there's a Karen, and like there's people who I feel that there's people who go on social media just to gripe about a business because they're having a bad time and they want to feel important. And there's definitely reasons why you should go and gripe about a business on social media. It just has to be one that's deserving. Um, you know what? I got an idea. Let's go look at some Karen stories, right? So yeah, I just want to fill this time up and do something fun. Yeah, the name of this group is FU Karen L. You know what? I don't really care. Hold on. Hey. Yeah, check it out. An old dog with this Karen haircut. Karen complaining about the TV station. Yeah, so this group, it's a Reddit called FU Karen. I'm not going to bother censoring that because we're live and I just don't care. But yeah, like, this is hilarious. This is one of my favorite ways of entertaining myself when when I'm trying to find something to do, because it's hilarious how stupid people are. And this is definitely somebody stupid. And yeah, why was it necessary to preempt two popular shows at 12:30? Hold on. Interrupting her program to cover news about... Wow. So the news station loses a couple of their coworkers because, a helicopter crash. And a Karen comes on and gripes because her show got interrupted. This is a kind of selfish crap that this is what what a Karen is, okay? A Karen is going to go into a restaurant, will demand that the server bring, constantly refill their soda, like, don't get me wrong, that's their job, yes, but then they'll turn right around and they'll stiff the waitress on a tip, and you don't get to do that. That's and tipping is just a whole nother thing. For some reason beyond my comprehension, other than just greed, sheer greed. In it's legal in this country to have what's called a sub minimum wage. And what I don't understand is, why have a minimum if you're still going to allow something below it? Minimum, don't you think minimum should be, here's the least amount you can get away with paying somebody legally? But then it's like, now we have the sub minimum. It's like, if I could pay you less, I would. But oh yeah, that's a tipped position, so you get half of what you were supposed to get. and I don't, they're great. And there's restaurants especially. These are the ones that are the biggest offender, in my opinion, of workplace violations. Uh, they abuse their workers. It's just the practices. Like you hear stories about people working in kitchens, and it almost sounds like there's war stories, like they were fighting in Vietnam or something. And then you hear servers that were getting harassed by their bosses that are sexist and sexist customers, and then management not having the staff's back. And I mean, it's just a whole bunch of things that just would not happen in an actual corporate office if they were working at, in an office. It's such a totally different experience between working in a kitchen, working in a restaurant, versus, getting what people might call a real job, working in an office, even working out in the field doing like home services or IT work. Uh, Things that would never fly out there in those environments happen in the kitchen all the time. And there's certain things that the more and more I look into the hold on, what's the word? The anti-work movement. Yeah, that's another good Reddit thread to read, is our anti-work, and the related ones. But yeah, so the more and more I read those groups, the more and more I didn't even realize that certain things happened in like restaurants that are outright wage theft. So for example, like again, servers, they have uh, that tip minimum wage. Now the federal tipped minimum wage is still $2.15 per hour. That doesn't even cover taxes after that's out. And then on top, so when Karens don't want to tip their waitress, this is what happens. That person is literally paying out of their own pocket for the privilege of bringing you your food. Um, Again, I understand the customers who complain about that policy and be like, well, it shouldn't be my job to, pay, you know, pay your employees, and that's true. But we have a broken system, and whether or not you like the system or not, it's a system we have. The only solution to that is if enough people decided to start their own restaurants where they paid a livable minimum wage. Um, it's not going to happen, but my point is, it's going to happen through legislation, and I just don't think that that's going to happen anytime soon. But it should. But so if you do tip your server, here's where some of that money goes. There's this and again, I've not worked in restaurants, so if I get something wrong, please correct me. But this concept of tipping out, and so that means that after, so first off, I think more people know about the sharing of tips. So you might have a server, you might have 5 servers. One of them gets $100 in tips that night, another one gets 50, another one gets 20, and for some reason the others only get 10 because they're awful. And instead of saying you go home with what you earned, the boss will just say, well, everybody throws their money into this jar, and at the end of the night we'll split it up and you go home with your fair share. And it's like, okay, first off, tips are performance based. If you suck at your job because you don't know how to deal with people, you earn that $10, believe me. And the person who earned $100 should go home with that $100. Now it gets a little more complicated. You get into restaurants that also have bars, and so if the waitress is bringing drinks, then there's a percentage of that tip that goes to the bartender, and then there's a percentage of that tip that goes to the back of house. Now, here's my argument against the back of house, and it's less against the bartender, because depending on the establishment, bartender may actually also be, largely coming from tips. But the back of house people, the cooks, the chef, the just everybody in the back there, they're actually paid at least minimum wage legally. Like not the sub minimum wage, the minimum wage for wherever they're at. They're getting paid better than than the servers are. So why is it that the servers who have to bust butt to come home with hopefully enough money to make a living has to give their money to the people that are going home with that money anyway? Well, to me, that's not fair. To me, that's just some idiot trying to run a business that doesn't really understand what it's like to, you know, be in those roles that they're paying people to be in or not paying people. If you're paying somebody $2.15 an hour, you're not paying them. You're not. And then so like there's this concept of making up the tips, like that's the whole point of what makes the sub minimum wages legal. If you don't make enough up on your tips to make up the money that you would have gotten if you would have been paid minimum wage, then the company's actually supposed to make that up and put that on your check anyway, so you get paid minimum wage. Here's what goes wrong. A lot of people who start those jobs, they're young, they're inexperienced, they don't know anything about labor law. They might be in high school. They're more worried about algebra and biology than they are whether or not their boss is screwing them over. And yeah, so things happen and people get abused and mistreated for years until they either get wise and leave somehow, or they don't get wise and they might not get out of that cycle. There's people who spend their entire lives working in the restaurant industry that may not have planned it. I've heard it could be kind of like a black hole industry to work in. You get in, you can't get out. I'm going to go ahead. We're going to break real quick. I'm going to go get something to drink. And when I come back, we'll talk more about, whatever comes up. 1 second here. Intermission. Oh, my toy's broken. There we go. Finally got some. yeah, so yeah, right, and I'm back. Yeah, so that's pretty much everything. But yeah, we got a few more minutes before the excuse me, before the before we're done for the night. So just out of curiosity, what kinds of things would you like to see on here? I know I've tried a variety of things. I haven't finished my microtik stuff yet. Last time I was doing anything with that, I was working on getting the remote Winbox service working, and I haven't figured out why it's not able to connect. So the way that works is it creates a VPN connection from your microtik device to that company's servers, and it kind of acts as a proxy, so you can use the Winbox app for microtik just anywhere. Um, but yeah, that's one of my ongoing things. Um, I'm definitely looking for more stuff. I got a whole bunch of stuff I could talk about. Um, I've thought about getting into prank calls, could be doing scam baiting, working on actually getting into some scam baiting. So, because nothing makes me happier than to hear those stupid a-holes get pissed, okay? Like, I watch videos of like guys like Jim Browning and Nanobaiter, and I mean there's just Scammer Payback, just a whole bunch of them, and they get these guys so riled up they delete their files, they back up their files themselves for the purpose of getting them busted by the Indian government. And in recent years, they finally figured out how to get the Indian police to actually do their jobs. And so, like, what happens is, so there's like it's a big organized crime ring, kind of like the mafia, but it's with scammers. And so these guys with deep pockets pay off the local police departments to just turn a blind eye to the activities. So the only way to get stuff done involves getting irrefutable evidence and lots of it, pressuring the media, pressuring the CBI, India's Central Bureau of Investigation, and so they end up getting these guys. And I tell you what, nobody insults quite the way a pissed off Indian scammer insults. I mean, you watch some of these videos and they really get pissed off. And like, I mean, I learned insults that I didn't even knew existed. And like, I'm not going to repeat the words here, but I mean, I guess I could the way I've got the channel classified. But my point is, like, they really get nasty, and like the sickening thing is they're willing to get that nasty with people, like old ladies and people that aren't all there. Um, and it's really sad. That's why they target old people, because old people are easy to be targeted sometimes. So yeah, it's really unfortunate. Um, I'd love to sit and keep going, but I feel like I'm tap dancing, I'm bull crapping, um, I'm running out of things to talk about. But yeah, so it's definitely a ride so far with this YouTube channel, because I had started trying to do videos earlier this year, and it didn't really take off the way I thought. I had some stuff going on with life, and ultimately, oh yeah, you're right. That is where the energy is. But but yeah, so I mean, like, I had some stuff going on with life that was really, heavy stuff that was really dragging me down. And I'm not going to talk about that right now, but So I couldn't give it the time and the focus that I really needed to. And so then I finally started coming out of the weeds and being able to start doing stuff. So yeah, so I went from so now I'm at least trying for some regularity. I've converted my tiny little bedroom into a half YouTube studio. In case you're wondering, that green screen behind me, um, one of these days I'll figure out how to use it. But if you notice, like right behind me, like right down here, this wall is freaking hideous. And so yeah, it looks like today yeah, actually it was while I was trying to find that power brick, I knocked my camera tripod around, and it looks like I didn't get the alignment right. So, but yeah, one of these days I'll figure out how to make that green screen work. I know right now if I tried to make it work, Streamlabs has trouble isolating the color because of the wrinkles from the folds in the green screen. Um, but I don't know, maybe sitting in front of a green screen that's probably poorly lit. It could just be this camera. Um, but I don't really, you know, either way, this is probably going to be my thing for a while. So I hope it's okay. But yeah, that doggone, I hate the walls in this apartment. But yeah, it's an apartment. I don't get to choose those things. It's all right though. I can hang up the green screen. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff I'm trying to do. A lot of stuff I'd like to do. I mean, I'd love to get to the point where I'm pushing out multiple shows a week. And maybe I've kind of sort of done that already, but not consistently. So far, this Wednesday night show is the only thing that's been consistent. So, but that's only been half-ass consistent, just because tonight, with the holidays and with everything that I've got going on, was definitely not a normal day, but I was glad I came on anyway and tried. And hopefully Saturday when Jory's back, we'll have like a full out discussion on about those jobs that people take for granted, and maybe I'll actually be a little better prepared, and because that's definitely something that's really important to me. Like I've been in the No One Wants to Work group since the pandemic, and that's when a lot of that stuff came up. Because what was happening was a lot of companies were cutting hours, they were cutting staff, and they had to, and some industries, especially restaurants, had to almost entirely shut down because of COVID restrictions. And then when it was safe enough for people to come back to work, people weren't. So what happened was when people were forced to go home and they couldn't go to work, the government put out some federal unemployment, where people who were used to making peanuts for busting their asses essentially got paid $2,400 a month on top of whatever it was that they would have gotten from the state normally for unemployment. And maybe I got those numbers wrong. It's been just long enough. But either way, people were bawling for a while, and I think what happened was they opened their eyes to the cycle of abuse that they were going through. Like why minimum wage has been stagnant for so many years, but inflation keeps going up. And so we get, the fight for 15, but now it's really the fight for 25, because 15 is not enough anymore. We're approaching 15 in some states. Illinois is at 12, maybe 12.50 now. I'd have to look, but like, but other states are at 15 or higher. But yeah, they're, by the time that actually catches up, it's just going to be a constant push for more. And unfortunately, I don't know that that's going to be enough. And so I kind of agree with the people that say that you should try to get a job that isn't minimum wage. And there's a lot of reasons why people are stuck at minimum wage, and it isn't because they're not capable of getting a job that pays more. But sometimes you take a job because that's the only job you can find. I've been there. Sometimes you do things that you don't normally want to do, but you got bills to pay, so time to go back to that thing you hate. And for a lot of people, it's like minimum wage jobs, working in restaurants, working a grill, being a server, taking a call center job. Ugh, I don't want to do that again. And doesn't mean I won't, but hopefully it doesn't happen. But those are jobs that I feel that people like to abuse the most. Like some of the things I learned working like technical support and customer service. Like if your job is to receive phone calls and that customer is angry, they could be yelling at you, they could be swearing at you, they could be calling you names. They could, especially if you've got really bad anxiety issues. And if you don't have anxiety issues, you will by the time you leave that job. But yeah, if you get a nasty customer, you can't just hang up on them like you would if it was your personal phone call. And because for some reason, like again, I think it goes back again to that whole customer's always right thing. And yeah, okay, so first off, if your customer is upset, they should absolutely be able to voice it to somebody. But I think there's like if we compare the way angry customers are handled here in America versus the way angry customers are handled elsewhere in the world, it's a huge difference. If you have this care and attitude in another country, like I've heard that the UK is like this, where if you think that you're gonna act like a Karen over in the UK, you're in for a surprise because you won't get squat. But that's just different labor laws, different culture, different. And with my own company, I don't permit that. Nobody that I hire, I'm going to allow to be abused by a customer. So I don't have a problem calling up a customer saying, yeah, you said this, you did this. Well, they're a human being too, and you can't talk to people that way. And so and it just makes me mad. A lot of managers at places just don't have the spine to tell people, you know, that they can't, that they're out of line. And so yeah, I got all sorts of stories from when I worked call center jobs. I could be, I might talk about that another time. But we're hitting 8:30. I came on a few minutes early anyway, so I'm gonna leave you with this. We'll see you Saturday. Just watch. I'll be posting online. Just watch Twitter. Watch Facebook. Those are the two places I'll post show times. And it's probably going to be about 10:30, 11 o'clock on Saturday. But we'll see you then.